As episode 2 begins, Shinji, fully untrained and thrown into the cockpit of this Evangelion, starts thinking about walking and gets one step before the entire thing just falls right down. But it's worse than just falling on your giant robot face. There's an angel in front of him that flexes up on him and just rips his shoulder out of his socket. But doesn't just rip the robot's shoulder out of its socket. We see the horrifying screams of Shinji as he feels his arm being pulled out of its socket. And in case that wasn't bad enough, we then see the angel using some sort of shoulder spear thing that starts bashing into the face of the Evangelion, which also Shinji can apparently feel, and then just blasts him back, blood spurting out both sides of the helmet, and we're all just wondering, why did you put an untrained kid in this robot to die? When he wakes up in a hospital, staring at the ceiling, and the hospital is drawn really ephemerally, like it's we're questioning whether this is the afterlife in this series or what's going on. When we smash the title, it says unfamiliar ceiling, and then cut to a helicopter that's clearly flying over where the battle just took place between the Evangelion and the Angel. And we don't have any time to think about what happened in this battle when we cut to an all-dark boardroom with all these brightly colored desks and these different guys sitting at it wondering about protecting their investment and how Nerve needs to take care of this. We briefly leave the boardroom to hear Misato talking about how the PR team is doing its best work and all the news stations have the same story. Then back into the shadowy Cabal boardroom, we hear everyone yelling at Ikari about how much all this costs and how he gave the Evangelion to his son, and then they end by telling him to focus on the Human Instrumentality Project before he gets booted from this Zoom call. I absolutely adore secret Illuminati-style cabals that are in charge of situations. I think it is such a fun and cool story, and, I think some people can be a little conspiracy theory nutty when they do it in the real world, but I think as a narrative structure, it's one of my favorite things. Even when I was a kid, I love when you get a secret group that is controlling the secret machinations in a secret way, pulling secret strings to make everything happen. Before we can get too excited about our new Illuminati, though, we go back to Shinji and we see that Rei is once again in her gurney getting wheeled past him. Back to Misato. When I describe it, it really feels like we're jumping around a lot. And I hope you're watching the series so that you can see that it's not as jumbled as my description may make it sound. Back to Misato, she gives us a great line about how AC is mankind triumphing over nature when she gets the news that Shinji is awake. Misato heads to the hospital to pick up Shinji. They head over to Nerve. There's a really uncomfortable silence when Shinji looks at his dad when he was going to get on the elevator. And then we learn that Shinji is going to have to live alone, and Misato doesn't seem too pleased with it. We cut to Ritsuko panicking about what Misato just said, and Misato reveals that Shinji's going to live with her, and that she's not going to make a pass at him. On the way to her place, they need supplies for the welcoming party, and they make a stop and actually see the buildings of Tokyo 3 rise from the ground, which is really cool and lets us know just how technologically advanced this city is in 2015. We learn that the city of Tokyo 3 is specifically built to guard against the angels, and I guess it worked? There's a really cute moment as Misato enters her apartment and then welcomes Shinji in, having him say that he's home, that is immediately cut with the fact that Misato lives like Asmongold used to. There is just trash and beer cans everywhere, and Shinji is shocked that she can live in this sort of squalor. As the party begins, the once cool and in control Misato is now chugging beers like a regular bro. After a couple only in anime camera angles, they split up the chores, and it's time for Shinji to shower up and bathe at the end of the day. We get a shot of Shinji looking up and seeing Misato's underwear hanging to dry, and as he opens the door to the bathroom, there's a penguin. There's a penguin in front of him. Startled at this penguin, he runs back out into the kitchen and starts shouting that there's a penguin, and Misato calmly tells him, yeah, there's a penguin. His name's Pen Pen. He's a warm weather penguin, whatever that means. And we get a hilarious physical gag where the beer can that is currently hiding Shinji's manliness is lifted out of the way to reveal a small jar of toothpicks that is still hiding his manliness. And Misato asks him if he wants to cover up, to which he gets embarrassed and runs back into the bathroom. We get one quick shot of Shinji in the tub, just kind of moping in his own thoughts. We get a quick cut to Ikari and Ritsuko in a destroyed control room looking place, talking about how it just sucks for the kids that this has to happen. We're then treated to a scene of Misato in the bath, but she's also sad. I mean, everyone is just sitting in the bath, sad thoughts. It's a real great robot anime so far. Just before we cut to Shinji staring up at the ceiling in his bedroom. Once again, it's an unfamiliar ceiling, and we hear some there's some noise repetitively in the background that immediately cuts into the angel once again pounding on the head of the Eva. That's right, we're going back to the fight at the beginning of the episode. Finally, we get our flashback. Here it is. The entire team is panicking. They're shouting about how Shinji's vitals are gone. They're trying to figure out what's going on. And then suddenly, the Evangelion's eyes light up, and Ritsuko whispers, "Berserker." Finally, we get the fight we were promised. So much happens here. The Eva screams and jumps at the angel. The angel puts up a force field that everyone calls an AT field. The Evangelion heals its forearm and then rips open the AT field. It then grabs and breaks the arms of the angel, shoves it back onto the ground, rips its ribs out of its rib cage, and starts just going to town with those ribs. And as the Eva is bashing away at this obvious weak point, the angel suddenly turns into a sphere and just explodes. Everyone in the control room is wondering if Shinji and the Eva are okay, and we hear giant footsteps coming towards the camera as Misato responds with, "Is that the Eva's true form?" We cut to Shinji, who is looking confused in the cockpit, when a part of the faceplate falls off of the Evangelion, and he turns and looks at a building next to him, and in the reflection he sees this weird gray head looking thing, and a freaking eyeball appears out of nowhere on the side of this thing. He screams and blacks out, and we cut back to Shinji in his room. Flashback over. As Shinji rolls over to try to sleep, Misato opens the door a little to tell him that he did something very good today, very noble. And with that, we've completed the first 2 episodes. And if you were with me back before 2000 watching this would have been the first VHS that we just finished. While I think that even in the modern era, the first episode is good enough for you to decide, animation's there, I like the music, there's a fun monster going on, the robot looks cool, I want to see the robot fight, I think you would continue to watch it. Back before 2000, when we had those 2-episode VHS tapes, this double episode set really shows what the creators were going for in order to get you hooked on the series. I think that in the modern era, where you can judge an anime based on just the first episode, that the first episode was good enough to keep you hooked and make you want to see this robot actually fight. But it's this 2-episode pair that would have come on that original VHS that really creates this desire to see what's going on. We see the robot fight. We get this Illuminati in the background. We learn all about these different organizations like NERV and the UN are trying to fight against this giant monster that are called angels. What's going on there? Suddenly, the Evangelion is a question mark, which, leads me to our board of questions. And the big question we get at the end of this episode, what Eva? It seems like a simple question because when you pick this up, you're like, oh, it's a robot anime. I can't wait to see the big robot fight against some other kind of big, oh, it's a big kaiju. Okay, big robot versus big monster. But then we get some sort of reveal that the Eva's not necessarily a robot. What are we dealing with here? And suddenly the title of the series is its own question. What is an Evangelion? At first, I thought it was just some weird words that they had come up with, like, oh, neon the cool colored lights, and Evangelion is like, we're evangelizing, and Genesis is a book in the Bible. Okay, cool. I thought it was just a mashup. But now that it's like, oh, this is an Evangelion, it's this like thing that's a robot, but it's not a robot. Now we want to know what that robot is. And the audacity of the second episode to start the fight and then wait for the entire episode to finish the fight so that you have to stick around to see that flashback, not knowing your first time watching this if that flashback is ever going to come. It's genius. I love it. I think these two episodes really work together in tandem to say, hey, if you think this is cool, stick with us. And we don't even have to focus on the big questions of like, what's an Evangelion? Why are the angels attacking? We had a lot of little questions too, where we're like, why is there a warm weather penguin? When did that become a thing? All of these interesting questions and mysteries that we've been presented with are just really surface level. Here's a thing, and we're questioning what that thing is. We're not even digging down into any level of depth into the series yet. And if all of these questions and mysteries aren't quite enough to get you hooked, hopefully the animation is good enough for you to say, you know what, the team looks like they know what they're doing. I'll give them a few more episodes, or at least that musical score. There's parts of this musical score that I will just kind of hum to myself while I'm doing something to give it, sometimes you want a little background music in your life. And so I, bum, while I'm going about things. Before we move on with the series, I want to give you a little bit more background on me when I was first watching this series. I've already mentioned a couple times that I was less than 10 the first time I saw this, and I want to put you in the shoes of that 10-year-old for a moment. I want to put you in the shoes of a little boy whose favorite series on TV was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, who absolutely adored Godzilla. And this was the time of Saturday morning cartoons. So, I was watching Animaniacs or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman. My family wasn't able to afford cable, but my grandparents did have cable. And my grandma was nice enough to record cartoons for me and my sister. And so we would get a VHS every week at church that had some more Hanna-Barbera cartoons on it. And because of that, my first anime experience is probably Speed Racer. There's a chance it was me sneaking out of my bedroom at night and catching bits and pieces of the Guyver OVAs, but I don't know if we should count that. And so when you have this little boy who's into Power Rangers, he's into Godzilla, he's really excited about cartoons, and you pick this anime where we have a giant kaiju-like monster fighting against what is like a crazy Megazord purple robot. This is just everything that he could want. And in the first two episodes, we take this and we make some of the characters sad for some reason that we haven't gotten to yet. The boy has a problem with his dad, which you as a little boy, your dad's great. You love your dad. And then the robot might not even be a robot. And even with all those strange turns, this series on that first VHS watching was still something where I could not wait until we could go back to the store and see if they had the second volume. Even though this series is me taking you through the different things I learned as I continued to rewatch the series, I did want to get some fresh eyes, some fresh perspective, so I had IJP Mexican watch the series for the first time and interviewed him. And for him, after finishing the entire series, one of his favorite scenes was when Shinji wakes up in the hospital and we get this jarring change from big action fight to calm. What's going on? Why are we here? And that jarring transition was enough to really convince him that he needed to see this through. Was there a specific moment that you were like, this is the coolest thing I've seen in the show, or this is the most important, like your favorite moment? It can be a whole episode if you want, or if there's like a 3-episode arc that you're like, wow, this arc where they're fighting here was really cool, or this thing that I watched them go through was like my favorite part of the thing.
So the first couple things that come to mind are the cut in episode 2, like right after his like brains explode, and it cuts him waking up in the bed. I'm like, I like that, like immediately. I think by episode 4 or 3, I don't remember which one, either 4 or 3, I was like, okay, I'm hooked. I don't remember like what exactly happened, but I was like, I want to keep watching this, and I couldn't because I had to go to bed. So that's a good sign, right?
Was it when you see the weird head of the Ava, or was it after that you were like, oh, I need to keep watching this?
I think it was before. I don't remember when that happens exactly. But when that happened, when it cuts to him in the hospital, I thought, oh, he messed up and Ray had to come in and fix it. And then
Yeah.
it's revealed at the end, no, he did actually, or he did the mission. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Hey, thank you for watching the second episode in the Evangelion Manifesto series. This is really fun for me to finally get out. I've been talking about it for a while, and I'm excited, even if it's in this shorter format, to finally be putting something out there for everybody to understand why I think this show is actually worth rewatching and why it has become such a pillar of the anime community. Let me know how many episodes you give an anime before you decide if you're going to watch it or drop it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Kanpai.